This girl has a pig nose. She had never been in a relationship before and planned to go straight to a blind date. The man just put on the glasses and saw Penelope's face. They were so scared that they broke the glass and jumped out of the window. They were not even worried about being dropped to death. Penelope was imprisoned in her parents' home as a child. She could only look at the outside world through the iron fence because she had a pig nose. So her mother thought it was important that no one outside knew about it. She took her daughter home in a hurry. But how did such a beautiful girl grow such a pig nose? Let's go back to 100 years. Penelope's great-grandfather was a handsome and elegant young man, but he fell in love with the family maid. Eventually, the maid became pregnant. This humiliating event was known to everyone, and they were ridiculed. The maid couldn't accept the shock. She jumped off a cliff in anger and killed herself. That night, the maid's witch mother came to Penelope's great-grandfather's house and cast a spell. She cursed the first girl of the family to have the appearance of a pig. Only if the boy would give her his true love's kiss, the girl could only regain her normal appearance. However, the family only gave birth to sons in each lifetime. Until the birth of Penelope, this pattern was broken. The parents came to the hospital with their daughter in their arms. They wanted the doctors to cut off Penelope's nose, but Penelope's nose was connected to an aorta. If the nose was removed, she would die. So the mother had to cover it up by lying about her daughter's untimely death. Penelope was then confined to her home. From then on, she spent her childhood with only her parents. Penelope turned 18 years old in no time. The parents wanted to remove their daughter's spell sooner rather than later. They paid for the most famous matchmaker. Jessica helped organize a matchmaking event. However, when the men saw Penelope, their first reaction was, many of the rooms had glass broken by the men. Men would rather break their legs than look at her, and the butler rushed over and brought them all back. He forced the men to sign confidentiality contracts before letting them go to strengthen the security. They also replaced the glass with tempered glass and put sneakers on the housekeeper. But the truth will be revealed one day as the housekeeper failed to chase Edward. Edward ran out of Penelope's house. The housekeeper rushed to tell the mistress about it. The hostess was in a panic. She drove after him with her family members, but Edward came to the police station to report the incident. He claimed that he had met a woman with a pig nose on a blind date. The police laughed at him when they heard it. They all thought Edward had a nervous problem, so they threw Edward out. Edward had to go home in frustration, but when he arrived at his doorstep, he found a newspaper article about him slandering the Penelope family. This angered Edward. He decided to take revenge on Penelope's family. Edward goes to a newspaper office. Here he met Lemon, a one-eyed detective. Lemon is a well-known local paparazzi leader. They decided to take advantage of a blind date to take some real photos of Penelope so that Edward could be cleared of the crime. More can revenge Penelope family. So they found Johnny. Johnny was also a literary enthusiast before. Singing and playing instruments were his strengths. However, he fell in love at a young age and was hurt by a girl. He began to become decadent and fell in love with gambling, and Johnny quickly agreed to their request in the face of the temptation of heavy money. He walks into Penelope's house wearing a suit with a camera. He is surrounded by a handsome man. Johnny hid behind the couch and set up his camera. He planned to take a good shot later, but then Penelope suddenly walks into the room. She was about to say hello to everyone, but the men were scared and fled. Johnny, who was hiding behind the couch, had no idea what was going on. They found through the camera that there was a man who hadn't left, so they thought Johnny had accepted Penelope's face. So they were very excited. Penelope and Johnny talked through the glass. Penelope felt heartbroken, and while Johnny was fixing his hair, Penelope was still a little shy. When Johnny was leaving, she couldn't wait to ask Johnny if he would come back tomorrow. And Johnny said, "I will definitely come." The next day, Johnny came back to Penelope's house. He took pictures of Penelope to get closer to her. He also showed Penelope his talent. This act completely made Penelope fall in love with him. Penelope has lived for 18 years. She has never been so happy as today. It was rare for a man to show his affection to her. While Johnny was playing the piano, Penelope's hand suddenly reached out to him. Johnny turned around with a start. He was still shocked when he saw Penelope's face. When they looked at each other for 5 seconds, Johnny found that Penelope was still cute. He wanted to reach out and touch Penelope's cheek. However, when his arm was raised, the camera sounded. Johnny hastily retracted his hand, but Penelope thought Johnny still didn't like her. She ran out of the room, sad and upset. Johnny was angry when he saw Lemon. He slammed the camera on the ground. The scene was discovered by Penelope's mother, who chased her out. They knew Johnny and the reporter were in cahoots, so they locked the door behind them. However, Johnny leapt over the fence with a single bound. He stepped inside before Penelope's mother could enter the house. He explained to Penelope what had just happened was a misunderstanding, but Penelope was on the verge of a breakdown. She didn't want to hear all the explanations. Penelope told Johnny that my nose is like this because of the curse. The only way to get rid of the curse is for me to get married. So she begged Johnny to marry her. Johnny replied sincerely that he couldn't. Penelope was heartbroken by all this. She wanted to run away from the family. She had had enough of being married by her parents. Penelope still decided to face the outside world alone. It was the first time in 18 years that she stepped out of the door. Penelope found the outside world strange and curious. Everyone loves life. The city was full of joy. She was touched by what she saw. Penelope found a hotel for the night. Penelope unfolds her scarf. She enjoyed the night view of the city from the hotel. But the next morning, the newspaper published a portrait of Penelope with fangs. She tore down the paper and went to the camera. Penelope took some photos of her face and sent them to Lemon. She wanted to prove that she was not that ugly. Detective Lemon received the pictures. He was very angry with Edward because the photos published were fabricated by Edward. To apologize, he republished Penelope's photo in the newspaper. Penelope, on the other hand, is trying to fit into society. She ordered a beer, but she couldn't control it and got drunk, so she clunks and falls to the ground. Someone saw this and quickly helped her take off her scarf. But this scene has surprised everyone at the scene. They thought the pig nose could be so beautiful. When Penelope woke up, she didn't know she had become a celebrity. All the cameras were on her. The public loved such an unusual girl. Even the president was kind enough to take a picture with her. But on the other hand, Edward's family was in trouble. He was mobbed by journalists for denigrating Penelope. Edward was forced to ask Penelope to marry him to get her forgiveness. Penelope felt that no one would marry her. Maybe Edward is truly repentant this time, so she agreed to marry Edward. But on the wedding day, Edward's acting was obviously very poor. He showed a very reluctant look. This made Penelope feel more and more like it was a scam. So she refused the wedding and ran straight home. Her mother knocks on the door. Penelope tells her mother, "I like the way I am." Suddenly a violin went blue. Time was turned back in an instant. Then Penelope passed out. When she woke up again, Penelope's pig nose actually disappeared. She became a beautiful girl. It turns out that the witch's curse is not the kiss of true love, but the ability to accept her true self. Then the housekeeper left the house with a suitcase. The mother had a hard time accepting it, but the butler left anyway. But the next moment, he became the witch. The curse had been lifted. It was time for her to leave. Edward also received a letter from Penelope. She told Edward that her pig nose was gone. Penelope forgave him. Edward regretted it very much at that moment. It's Christmas time. Everyone wore cute masks. By chance, Penelope met Johnny again, but this time Johnny didn't know she was Penelope. He told Penelope that he was leaving town because he was a gambler before, so he missed out on the one he loved. Because Johnny thought he didn't deserve that woman, Penelope was touched by him when she found out the truth. Penelope took off her mask. The two people who really loved each other hugged each other. Since then, they have also lived a sweet life. Everyone is born with their looks. However, people have their own love story no matter what. As long as they face life with courage, I believe that every friend will find their own love. You can subscribe and leave comments if you have any ideas. Thanks for watching. See you next time.